His body was in agony. His arms and legs were gone, save for stumps. His corneas and retinas, already damaged, were being saved from further injury thanks to the dark circles for eyes on his helmet filtering out light. His eardrums were melted, damaged beyond repair. His ability to hear was only dependent on sound waves being transmitted to implants in his inner ear. However, it was as if the sounds he was hearing were coming from underwater. A thick cable was driven into his torso and linked to a breathing apparatus. Tubes ran directly into his lungs and his throat as well. The breathing tubes had been inserted low enough in his throat that he could still form sounds, though if it hadn't been for the machines and the enunciator, his voice would be nothing more than a whisper. The metal table rose until Vader was upright. These sounds, these noises, the implanted sensors in his ears would sometimes pick up too many sounds at once, and their direction and distance could be difficult to determine. Even the smallest noise would sometimes provide an echo effect. "Where is Padme?" Vader could hear his own difficult raspy breathing that was coming through his mask. "Is she alright? It seems in your anger, you killed her." "No. No," Vader said over and over again, visualizing himself in that final moment with Padme on Mustafar. "No." Vader ripped himself free of the restraints, keeping him in place on the table where he was put into his new prison. "No." Vader ripped himself free of the restraints, keeping him in place on the table where he was put into his new prison. His tall boots fit poorly over his new artificial feet, which were so heavy he nearly felt bolted to the ground. Enraged, he summoned the force to push Sidious into the wall as his master let out a grunt. Sparks went flying. "You told me you could save her." "In your rage, you chose a different path," the Sith replied. "Padme is dead, my friend. Even the power of the dark side cannot bring her back. But in her death, she has given you a gift. Pain. Will you accept that gift, use it, or will you die?" Vader released his grip on his new master. The heavy cloak as well as the metal plating around his shoulders and chest restricted his movement where he could barely lift his arms over his head. Vader looked at his master through his new form of sight. His body had been constantly itching due to the synthetic skin that had been grafted to his body to replace that which had been burned off in the lavas of Mustafar. "I will live," Vader breathed. "Good." Sidious unleashed a wave of torturous force lightning on his apprentice. "Where is your lightsaber, Lord Vader? Use its power. Defend yourself." Lost in the fight with Obi-Wan, Vader spoke as best he could, still not used to his new suit, let alone the lightning crackling through his destroyed body. "No," Sidious screamed. "That blade belonged to a Jedi. You are a Sith." The lightning finally stopped, and Sidious ignited a lightsaber of his own and held it to Vader's throat. "I realize this has been a traumatic time for you, but if you touch me with the Force again, I will finish what Kenobi could not." The red blade vanished into its hilt. "I do hope we never find ourselves in this position again." Mere moments after the new Sith Lord Darth Vader broke free from the metal table where he was put into his new suit which would keep him alive, though cause agonizing pain, he and Darth Sidious stood watching a ceremony of sorts taking place before them. Jedi lightsabers, the ones who wielded them no doubt dead after Order 66, being dumped into a furnace and set ablaze. Nearly countless Jedi lives had been lost, and for the new galactic empire, this was a cause for celebration. "Do you know why our blades are red, Lord Vader?" Sidious said as he watched, no doubt in amusement. "A red saber is no different than any other, except it has been made to bleed. As you know, the Kybers are alive in their way. Like any living thing, they can feel pain." Vader listened intently. "Through the dark side, you must pour your pain into the crystal, and when at last the agony becomes more than it can stand, a beautiful crimson, the color of your rage." Vader looks on as the flames erupt into a scorching heat. "You could have given me any one of those lightsabers to corrupt, but you did not. The saber of a Sith is not given, it is taken." Vader is dropped off on a mid-rim planet by his master to begin his search for a new weapon to bleed, to pour his rage into, thus creating the perfect weapon worthy of a Sith Lord. He gazes across the planet's surface through the lenses of his helmet, his new eyes, takes in his surroundings, and sets off into the unknown. Vader begins his journey by coming across some unfortunate souls and taking their ship for his own, which he uses to travel to a mid-rim Jedi outpost designated Brightholm. Of course, no Jedi are there. He uses the archives within the outpost to search for a backup of the primary records that were kept at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, searching for any Jedi who took a vow prior to the Purge, which Vader refers to as the Barash vow. In his own words, any Jedi pursuing Barash has sworn to refrain from activities related to the Order, complete disengagement from anything but the Force. It is a type of penance. A Barash taker would have felt the Purge, however they would not have allowed themselves to take action. In Vader's mind, if he can find a person such as this, then he would have someone he could defeat, only to claim their lightsaber and bleed it, making it his own. Finally, a candidate is discovered, Karak Infila. Vader arrives on the river moon of Aldolim to hunt his target, but it seems that Vader's target has found him. Standing high above on the edge of a cliff, the old man with long white hair and beard to match looks down at Vader. Not long ago through the Force, I felt the death of almost every Jedi. That darkness resonates with you. Did you do it? Did you kill them? Vader gives a simple yes. Are you here to kill me? Again, simply yes. Karak Infila proclaims that his Barash is complete, having taken the vow as a result of his transgressions until his path became clear, and now he intends to avenge his Jedi brothers and sisters. The two engage in battle, and the Jedi manages to actually get the better of his opponent, giving their battle his all. Vader is thrown off of the mountain and sent plummeting to the cliffs below. However, this is an extremely determined Vader. Vader gets up, even having to replace his broken cybernetic leg with that of one from a nearby droid. He begins his journey again, but this time things will go very differently. The old Jedi is shocked when he sees the dark, haunting form of the man he thought to be dead. The battle ensues once again. Vader is relentless. He summons his power, summons the Force to destroy the dam of the River Moon, while the Jedi attempts to stop him but to no avail, as he pleads for Vader to spare the lives of those below. However, as the Jedi is distracted, Vader takes the old man's lightsaber, lifts him up into the air without laying a finger on him, and only a moment later, he is gone, along with the drowned city. Mustafar, the site of his greatest defeat, where now he will rise. Vader stands inside of a cave underneath the planet's surface, a powerful point for the dark side of the Force. He stands, disassembling his newly acquired lightsaber, and removes the green kyber crystal from inside. He reaches out with the Force. He is suddenly hurled back. What have I done? He asks himself. Then the visions begin. He is at the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, standing before his master, when he ignites a green blade before Sidious lunges towards him and the two engage in a war. In the end, though, Vader is victorious, having made his choice. A lush green planet. Obi-Wan is sitting on a mound of grass when he sees the black-clad Vader standing behind him. Obi-Wan ignites his blue lightsaber, but looks on as the deep bass-like voice of Vader says his name, before removing his helmet and kneeling down before his former friend. Please, Anakin simply says quietly. Vader awakens, back on Mustafar. No, he says as he makes his way back to the crystal. I refuse. He takes it in his hand. This is all there is. There are sparks of lightning. Even the lava on the fiery planet begins to erupt as it can feel the anger, the rage coming from the being currently there. Vader envisions everyone. He sees Anakin carrying the body of his dead mother, sees the face of Padme, then the hideous face of his master. Obi-Wan standing on the black shore of Mustafar before he leaves Anakin for dead. Vader screams. And finally, it's done. Back on Coruscant, Vader enters Sidious's chamber, stands before him, and ignites his new red blade, a beautiful crimson. The Inquisitorius, Force sensitives, many of whom were former Jedi, turned to the dark side, either on their own or were tortured and corrupted until they were broken beings who would then serve the dark side and answer to the Galactic Empire and Sith. They would be given a number, then depending on their gender of course, be referred to as brother or sister. Ninth sister, sixth brother, etc. Except, of course, for the Grand Inquisitor, a former Jedi Temple guard who was over the Inquisitorius and answered directly to Darth Vader, even though the two didn't exactly always get along, even when hunting down survivors of Order 66. Sometime after the Jedi Purge in the beginning of the Galactic Empire, a dark-cloaked figure who was wandering the halls of the former Jedi Temple on Coruscant, now the new Imperial Palace. He stops at a display holding a former temple guard outfit and gazes upon it. Something familiar. Lies, he says to himself. I remember lies. Elsewhere, Darth Vader, having just made repairs to his suit using the Force as he was emerged in a bacta tank at the same time, which is pretty cool by the way, is alerted that there is an intruder inside of the temple. Vader finds the intruder inside of the Jedi archives looking wanderingly. No one will deny me now, he says. No one is left. Or so he thought, just as the menacing black form of the new Sith Lord appears, a lightsaber ignited. The intruder is forced to ignite his weapon as well, and the two figures engage in battle. The man ditches his cloak, revealing a menacing face, and lashes out at Vader. However, even after the intruder ignites yet another blade on his lightsaber and they begin spinning around and around at unbelievable speed, Vader is still able to get the better of him and is ready to move in for the kill. However, before Vader can land the killing blow, he is stopped by his master Sidious. I see you have met the Grand Inquisitor. The Inquisitor, still on the ground, yet to regain his composure completely. My Emperor, I don't understand. You gave me leave to explore the archives, to study Jedi teachings to see how I might turn them towards the ends of the Inquisitorius. Darth Sidious reveals that he alerted and sent Vader to the Grand Inquisitor as he wanted the two to meet. You see, my friend, he goes on, you are first among Inquisitors, but the Inquisitorius belongs to the Sith. Vader remains bewildered as he and his master travel to the Industrial District, where they find the Inquisitors training among themselves. Red, double-bladed lightsabers in hand, similar to the one that attempted to kill Vader shortly before. The Inquisitorius, a project of mine long planned. Slaves to the light side once, now awake, hunters and all. Vader stands by his hooded master, gazing down from on high at the group. What do they hunt? Why, Jedi, of course. Most of the Jedi were killed in our glorious purge, but some few remain. You and the Inquisitors must find these Jedi, Lord Vader. You must turn them all. You must destroy them all, for in truth there is no greater threat to our galaxy. Vader is put in charge of the Inquisitors, and it wouldn't be a stretch to say that their training was torturous. Vader had no problem brutalizing them and even taking the opportunity to sever limbs from their bodies to teach them the lesson of loss, which the Grand Inquisitor wasn't too pleased about. Their earliest mission would be to track down former Jedi archivist Jocasta Nu, who was believed to have survived Order 66. She did in fact survive and had built a school for Force sensitives and was attempting to find and gather students to begin a new era of Jedi. However, instead of Vader and the Inquisitors having to hunt her down, in time she would come to them. She would return to the former Jedi temple and sneak in, attempting to attain a holocron which contained Force-sensitive beings throughout the galaxy, which she could find and bring to her new school. It wouldn't be long before she would stumble across the Grand Inquisitor, poring over knowledge in the archives which had been denied him by Jocasta Nu herself during his time as the Temple Guard. He would confront her and the two engaged in a duel before the Grand Inquisitor got the better of her and was about to end her life before she was saved by Vader, who reinstated that the Emperor wanted her alive. She managed to escape momentarily after deleting the archives, but it wasn't long until Vader found her and prepared to bring her in. Nu began taunting Vader, even revealing that she knew he was the fallen Anakin Skywalker. As a matter of fact, once on board a transport, Nu would continue to taunt Vader by telling the clone troopers on board the truth of Vader's identity, and Vader would then kill the troopers to protect this coveted information. Vader, disregarding the Emperor's desire to keep her alive, ignited his red blade, and Jocasta Nu accepted her fate. Vader would tell his master that the former archivist had tried to escape, and he did what he needed and ended her life. Who was he? The young pilot who destroyed the Death Star, who seemed to have ruined everything. Who was he? He must be found. He must be brought to me alive. Darth Vader needed answers, and he was determined to get them, even if it meant going behind his own master's back. However, in looking for these answers to his questions, not even the Dark Lord of the Sith expected the news he would eventually get, when he heard one word that changed his perspective on everything that happened over the past near 20 years. One name: Skywalker. Following the destruction of the first Death Star, Darth Vader would lose some favor in the eyes of his master Sidious, with Sidious saying that while others such as Tarkin share the blame in the weapon's destruction, Vader is the only one still alive to suffer Sidious's anger, even describing Vader as a blunt instrument better to be wielded than to wield himself, and demoting Vader, forcing him to answer to Tag, another Imperial officer during the construction of the second Death Star. Behind his master's back, Vader would meet with Jabba the Hutt on his former self's home planet Tatooine. Jabba would even attempt to have his men kill Lord Vader, but this of course didn't go over very well, especially after Jabba called Vader a Jedi, which Vader did not appreciate to say the least. After nearly force choking the Hutt out, Vader simply said, "This is what I need." Later, while standing underneath the twin suns of Tatooine, Vader would be greeted by a man wearing green Mandalorian armor and a massive Wookiee, all black fur with a scar over his left eye. "You're the client," Boba Fett said. "And you're the best Jabba has," Vader replied. "Are you bounty hunters up to the challenge?" There was an X-Wing pilot. He knew an Obi-Wan Kenobi. He left this planet aboard a smuggling vessel called the Millennium Falcon. "I know the ship," Fett said. "Dead or alive?" "Alive," the Sith Lord said coldly. "I have need of him." Boba would begin his search in Mos Eisley, knowing the owner of the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo, and apparently Kenobi's new ally frequented there. He would interrogate and kill Rhodians, Jawas, moisture farmers, until he finally stood inside of the cantina looking for answers from the scum of the planet that frequented the establishment. However, instead of answers, he received mocking from the patrons. After dismembering and breaking the arms of one of his antagonists, Boba saw a young moisture farmer attempt to flee, only to be stopped by the ruthless Mandalorian. Boba eventually broke the boy, forcing him to reveal the history of Boba's target. Perhaps most importantly, he knew the boy's name, Luke Skywalker. Even after receiving the information, Boba shot the boy in the chest and left Mos Eisley Cantina. Afterwards, Fett went to the home of Kenobi in the Junlan Wastes, hoping Skywalker would show up. Luke would finally arrive, only to have to chase off a group of Tusken Raiders he found ransacking the place with his lightsaber. Boba blinded Luke with a flash grenade, and the two men engaged in a struggle, with Luke attempting to fight off Fett even though he was temporarily blinded. Luke would end up cut, bloodied, and even shot in his shoulder by the determined bounty hunter. Luke would give the battle his all, and suddenly a box marked "For Luke" would fly through the air and hit Fett directly in the head, forcing him into unconsciousness, allowing Luke and R2 to leave Fett and Tatooine behind. Later, Boba would be forced to confront Vader, telling him the events that transpired. "I lost him," he said. "That is most disappointing," the Dark Lord said as he stood with his back to the Mandalorian. "Did you bring me anything of value?" "Just his name," Fett replied. "Skywalker." Vader's fist clenched tight. "Annie, I'm pregnant," he heard Padme's beautiful voice tell the man he once was. "That's wonderful," he said with a smile all those years ago. Vader's closed fist shook with rage. He could envision the hooded figure of his master. "It seems in your anger, you killed her." The glass that Vader stood behind on the ship cracked and nearly shattered completely due to his anger and rage. "Skywalker," Vader said to himself, "I have a son. He will be mine. It will all be mine." Vader would of course eventually confront Luke on Cloud City, cutting off his hand and revealing the truth. "I am your father." Those words now famous. Luke Skywalker has escaped, his friends with him, with the exception of course of Han Solo, who has been frozen in carbonite and is in the possession of Boba Fett on board his ship. Emperor Palpatine has requested that Darth Vader make contact with him. However, Vader is currently unavailable. Vader, now aboard his shuttle, only in the presence of a droid, Z-67, and Death Troopers who are accompanying him to his destination. "Skywalker," Vader says, "I will find him again when the time is right. For now, we will track down everyone who hid the boy from me, everyone who made him weak, and destroy them." Vader's shuttle flies towards the planet where the boy was first seen, Tatooine. Vader, along with his droid and troopers, touch down on the sand-covered planet, where the droid searches a terminal for local records which leads them to the Lars family home. Vader can't help but have flashbacks of his life as Anakin, his past life on Tatooine, his mother, meeting the Lars family, his time there with Padme. At some point, Owen and Beru adopted a child named Luke Skywalker, Z-67 says as he and Vader search the Lars home. There's little in the official record about the lad. The droid continues on about the animosity between Tatooine moisture farmers and Tusken Raiders, and how Shmi Skywalker was killed by Tuskens, only for them to be massacred shortly after. Nothing, of course, that Vader didn't already know. The Lars are dead and can't be punished. However, in his anger, Vader ignites his lightsaber and unleashes on a group of nearby individuals who tried to attack Vader himself. This, of course, doesn't end well for them, and Vader destroys them only to head to his next stop, Coruscant. He finds himself standing in the middle of the apartment home of Padme. She was the mother, Vader tells Z67. Only her most trusted allies could have known she was pregnant and stolen the boy before she died. Did they bring her here? Did they leave a trace? The droid says that the security recordings from that time are missing. He does manage to find a scout transmitter which leads them to the planet Vindaxa. It's there that he encounters a woman with a striking similarity to his late wife. He eventually learns that she was one of the Queen's shadow, a handmaiden of Padme. Sabe, the Queen's double. Sabe wants to learn the truth behind Padme's death. She wants revenge. She seemingly agrees to work with Vader to learn all that she can. You fear me, Vader tells her. Good. Let that fear guide you. I will always triumph. If you serve me, so will you. Sabe tells Vader that after Padme's funeral, they broke into the quarters to take the chamber's security recordings, searching for clues, searching for a hint of who really killed her. After the rise of the Empire, the recordings were hidden on Naboo, and that's where they go next. Everywhere they go, Vader thinks back on his memories with Padme. They meet up with friends of Sabe, who at first try to attack Vader, but is stopped by Sabe. Vader nearly unleashes on the group. However, he holds in his rage after learning they are the ones the security recordings were given to. The group eventually gains the recordings they have been searching for. However, once the recordings begin playing, Vader sees images of Sabe and her friends, calling themselves Amidalans, seeking vengeance for their fallen queen. The last time I saw Padme, Sabe says, she was heading to Mustafar to find Skywalker. Years later, we learned that Mustafar was your domain. You killed them, didn't you? Vader ignites his crimson blade and a war ensues. However, a terrible monster from the waters of Naboo attacks the group and they are all separated. Vader manages to kill the beast, but not his new enemies. Later, he finds himself at the tomb of his wife. However, Sabe and now the rest of the Queen's handmaidens have found Vader there also. If you wish to live, Vader begins, leave now, or... He is unable to finish as the group unleashes their fury on the Sith Lord. They are of course no match for Vader, and Vader uses his powers to push them away from him before he finally enters the tomb. Z67 performs a scan and finds a med implant, stamped and traceable. This leads them to Polis Massa, a former rebel base, now bombarded by Imperial troops. The droid searches the port control for data and discovers a Naboo J-type star skiff that was transporting Padme along with 2 droids and none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi. She was injured, the droid says, and was apparently brought here to save her life. Kenobi, Vader says under his breath. Vader, his droid, and the troopers find themselves at a maternity ward, and Vader inquires of any recordings. The data's core has been destroyed, the droid says. I'm sorry, Lord Vader, there's nothing here to recover. Or so they thought. They stumble across one of the midwife droids and are able to obtain a holo image from it. Vader looks on at his wife, who has just given birth, as she says once again the name of Obi-Wan. That name again, the droid watches. He must have been very important to her. Vader, of course, doesn't take kindly to this, and in a blinding fit of rage, slashes Z67 in 2. There's good in him, the image continues to play. I know there's still, and she is gone. Though Vader's journey didn't give him the full revenge he was looking for, the Lars family was dead. He's killed Obi-Wan, but in the back of Vader's mind, he still knows he was lied to by his master Palpatine. Vader returned to his master Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine, and Palpatine wasn't at all pleased with Vader. Vader had gone rogue and even rebelled against his master when Palpatine had requested Vader's presence after the events on Cloud City. Palpatine wasn't at all shy about punishing and even torturing Vader if he thought it was deserved, and once Vader returned to him after his mission, Palpatine unleashed his Sith lightning onto his apprentice. Vader attempted to deflect it with his crimson blade, but it was too much. Vader had been sent to bring Luke to the dark side. Instead, the young man escaped. Afterwards, Vader was summoned to report to Palpatine. He instead embarked on his own personal mission. On that mission, he came across a cell of rebels led by Sabe, the double of Padme Amidala. Instead of killing them all, they live still. At best, this was failure. At worst, treason. Palpatine finally relented, only to summon his guards upon Vader. Again, Vader tried to fight back, but Palpatine took Vader's lightsaber away from him. Being the ruthless Sith Lord that he is, Vader was still able to get the upper hand and began choking the life out of the guards and even Palpatine's Grand Vizier. Palpatine would, however, turn the tables and lift Vader himself into the air with a powerful force choke of his own. "How does it feel, Lord Vader," he said, "to be so weak, to feel such pain, to know such fear?" Palpatine, so strong in the Force, so ruthless, Vader's suit began to spark and malfunction. Vader screamed as parts of his suit exploded, and his mechanical legs and arm detached and fell to the floor, a broken pile of worthless scrap. Vader crashed below next to it. "You must find yourself again, old friend," the evil Darth Sidious says to the broken man. "You must relearn the primacy of power above all else, or you must die." Vader is taken to Mustafar, the site of his defeat. 2 Death Troopers drag the broken Vader to the river of lava and drop him at the edge. Palpatine follows. "The last time you were broken, I found you. I rebuilt you. This time you must rebuild yourself, using nothing but your own strength." Palpatine tosses Vader's lightsaber to the ground, and Vader reaches out with the Force to pull it to himself, using his one cybernetic arm still attached to his body. However, Palpatine puts a heavy foot on top of it to stop it. "Not like that, old friend. If you try to tap into the Force, I will know, and this whole exercise will come to an end." Palpatine and the troopers return to their ship, leaving Vader behind, alone and broken. Vader manages to crawl up the black sand beach and reach his weapon. Using his power and rage, he scratches and claws to an old run-down building, a familiar one. Inside, he finds the decomposed body of Newt Gunray, the Viceroy that Vader killed years ago following the events of Order 66 and Operation Nightfall. It is there that Vader is able to use spare parts and limbs from droids to attach to himself, to at least manage to get around on 2 feet, more or less. Shortly afterwards, Vader had an encounter with the assassin Ochi of Bestoon, sent by Palpatine himself to test Vader. Vader would choke Ochi out, not with the Force, but with his makeshift metal arm instead. Afterwards, Vader would begin to hear the call of a mysterious creature, leading him to venture into a dark cave where he would encounter the Eye of Webbish Bog, a terrible, spider-like creature, extremely powerful in the Force, who begins to test Vader, giving him visions, forcing Vader to fight off terrible creatures. Vader eventually passes these trials, and at the end, the creature bestows to Vader a small pyramid-like piece, a Sith Wayfinder. Vader returns from the cave and comes across Ochi once again and forces him to tell him about the Wayfinder. "Plug it into your nav system," Ochi says. "It'll show you the way to Exegol." Much to Ochi's dismay, he is forced to tag along with Vader as Vader sets out to find out the Emperor's true secrets. Using the Wayfinder, now in his possession, on his way to Exegol. On his way to the unfamiliar world, Vader encounters a subspecies of the Suma Verminoth, a terrifying monster with one massive eye, huge teeth, and long damaging tentacles. If that isn't enough, Palpatine has sent Administrator Umbaron, accompanied by 3 Star Destroyers and a legion of TIE Fighters to finish what Ochi could not when he was tasked to test Vader. Vader manages to destroy nearly a dozen TIEs before heading straight towards the terrible massive monster. Many of the TIE Fighters foolishly attempt to follow, leading them to be obliterated by the huge beast. Vader and Ochi arrive to Exegol, however the Suma Verminoth is there as well. "We have to run," Ochi says. "You run, assassin," Vader replies. "I will not. I do not fear death. It is simply not an option." Vader begins to reach out with the Force. Miraculously, the beast begins to calm down in the presence of the Sith Lord. "They hope to fill me with fear, but fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to power. So now, let the Emperor fear me." In a pretty incredible sight, the now tamed beast heads toward the Emperor's structure on Exegol, with Vader on top of the monster. Palpatine looks toward the dark sky as he sees the Suma Verminoth heading towards him with the black-clad figure of Vader standing on top of it. "Show yourself, Master," Vader taunts. "I want to see your face when I teach you what it is to fear." 2 other monsters suddenly appear and attack Vader and his beast. "You've grown bold, my apprentice," Palpatine exclaims, "but there is no threat I have not prepared for." The Summa Verminoth is able to quickly defeat Palpatine's beasts. I am no longer your apprentice. Palpatine has had enough. He reaches out with the Force himself, and in an incredible show of power, murders the Summa Verminoth, leaving Vader on the ground before him. There, you sense it, don't you? You talk about fear, but even now you forget where it all begins, with pain. Vader enters the Emperor's Exegol temple and sees the wonders and atrocities all around him. He is then attacked by an army doing Palpatine's bidding, and then dozens and dozens of Sith followers armed with daggers. Vader, however, uses the Force to pull the daggers from them and turn them on the followers themselves, killing them all. Vader continues to wander, the voice of Palpatine taunting him with every step. Vader stumbles across an incredible sight. Star Destroyers, hundreds of them. The greatest secrets of Exegol, Palpatine's voice echoes. A fleet of Star Destroyers, 1,000 times more powerful than the galaxy has ever seen. Ochi, who has been in the background this whole time, stares in amazement. These aren't just machines, he says. Each will carry a weapon that can destroy a planet, and there are hundreds of them. Suddenly, the duo hears a loud, torturous shriek coming from inside of a huge structure not far from them. They enter and find a towering red crystal. Kyber crystal, Palpatine's haunting voice continues, the living mineral that powers every lightsaber. But a saber uses just the tiniest shard. To power the cannons of my fleet, I have harvested a mountain. The crystal screams in pain. Kyber is a living thing, Vader tells Ochi, and to serve the Sith, the Kyber must suffer. Yes, pain, Palpatine goads. Only then will it find its true power. Suddenly, the crystal explodes in a force of energy, enough to blast Ochi's mask from his face and even cause Vader to exclaim in pain. Palpatine makes his true presence known. Unlimited power, beyond anything you have ever experienced, all in my hands. You feel it, burning your flesh and mind, ready to incinerate you in an instant. And you know you cannot fight it. So how can you claim it? Pain, fear, anger, power. It's the path you have chosen time and time again, but somehow need to choose again. If you walk with me, you will never escape this terrible pain, but only in this way can you share my power. Vader continues to struggle against the crystal's blinding red energy. Vader even sees a vision of Luke back on Cloud City, their roles seemingly reversed, in which Luke tells Vader that he would one day indeed kill the Emperor. Lord Vader, Palpatine continues, have you chosen? Yes, Master, Vader finally exclaims, seemingly submitting to his master once more. Realizing that Palpatine's true power and plans were greater, more terrible, and even far more dangerous than even Vader had once thought. The temporarily defeated Vader leaves Exegol with his master and heads back to Coruscant to be rebuilt after this terrible trek he has endured.